This 1983 ERF has been lovingly restored after a hard-working life. But just looking at it makes you realise just how trucks and the whole industry have changed over that short space of time. Today's trucks are complex machines designed to deliver flexibility, reliability, economy and low maintenance. But as with most machines, they require regular servicing and routine inspections to keep them performing at peak efficiency and to keep them safe on the roads. All vehicles must meet a minimum standard of roadworthiness, and that must be maintained at all times that vehicle is on the road in order to avoid the possibilities of prohibitions, fixed penalties and even perhaps immobilisation. This DVD is to help people involved in maintaining vehicles to inspect them to the best possible standard, and help guide us through that process is Jake Fawcett, FOSA's vehicle examiner. Jake, great to see you again.
Hi, Sophie.
Now, what we're doing today is different from a daily walk-around check, isn't it?
That's right. What we're going to look at here is an efficient inspection process for everybody who's involved in vehicle maintenance. The VOSA procedure, when done properly, provides us with a very effective inspection routine, and that's what we use at annual test.
And when you're doing your annual test, you're judging a vehicle against a minimum set of standards, but I assume you'll be hoping that drivers and operators have got a higher set of standards that they're continually reviewing so that their vehicles are always roadworthy.
Well, that's true. It's up to operators to set their own minimum standards, and these should include non-testable items as well. But what we're going to be looking at today are things that may well attract a prohibition or even a fixed penalty, and also things that may well be advisory items and written down on the test card and passed on to the presenter at annual test.
So I guess many operators would have their own routines and practices, and what you're about to show us is a VOSA test and what you would be looking for.
Well, what we'll do is we'll show you the testable items in brief. If we were to show you the details on absolutely everything, such as the vehicle-specific stuff, we'd probably be here all night. When we get to the end of the DVD, I'll show you where to get chapter and verse.
Great. So what first?
Well, for a kick-off, anyone who's doing an inspection needs to be given the time and the facilities to be able to carry out the inspection properly. They need to be left alone so they can concentrate on what they're doing, and also they'll need an assistant. Many
operators lease their vehicles, don't they? And they'll be sent away from maintenance, I imagine.
Well, that's possible, but they still remain the responsibility of the operator who's using them. And it'll be their responsibility to make sure that these vehicles are maintained and inspected regularly. OK, so what do we need today? You would need a suitable area of hard standing for the topside inspection, maybe a pit or a hoist for inspectors to be able to get a proper inspection view underneath the vehicle. But some vehicles, however, it may be possible to do an adequate underside inspection using a hard standing base.
Great, should we go and take a look at a truck then?
Yeah, come on.
So here's our truck.
Yep. Now, the first thing we do when we come over to the truck is check its identity against the VTG6 ministry plate. Now, you normally find that in the near side footwell of the cab or somewhere around that area, OK? Then we'll come across to the offside front of the cab and we'll address the driver, tell him what it is we want him to do, because we'll need him as an assistant to work the lights and such likes. OK, we happy with that, driver? I'll give you some instructions as we go down the side of the vehicle to work lights and things for me, OK. Right, how should we proceed?
We're going to go top, middle, bottom?
You can do, or you can go bottom, middle, top, whichever way you want to go, just so long as we cover all the areas that we need to look at. But starting at the top then here, we'll look at our mirrors, make sure we got the right number and that they're secure, no sharp edges. Coming down the front of the vehicle, no sharp edges and all the panels are secure. Driver's step for security. Driver's door. Making sure that closes securely. Side repeater indicator for security. Moving then over into the wheel arch area. I'm using a lamp to look inside here to make sure there's nothing hanging down or likely to foul a wheel or tyre. Also gives me a chance to look at the top shock absorber mounting. Any air pipes and control pipes that might be there, and also the cab mountings here that we can see. Tyre, most important.
Yeah,
obviously, we're going to check the tread depth, the condition of the tread area, condition of the sidewall. We want to make sure that we've got the same size tyre on both sides. So we look at the tyre size, OK? And like I say, make sure they're both the same size across the axle. We're looking at load index and speed rating as well. It's important to check these against the axle weights on the ministry plate. We're looking for damage on the sidewall, and on the inner sidewall we get a better look at when we get it on the lift or over the pit. OK. The wheel and wheel nuts, we know about how important this is. Wheel condition, we're looking for signs of corrosion, distortion or damage, or any cracks that might be here on the nave of the wheel. Wheel nuts.
Would you use a torque wrench there?
What, to check for wheel nut security? Not on the test, but it's good practice for operators to use calibrated torque wrenches to make sure wheels are secure and properly fastened at all times. We use the tried and trusted method. First of all, visually, we're checking for signs of any movements, any rust lines that might give game away. We will check the wheel nuts for security by tapping them like so. Now this is a spigot mounted wheel, which means it's got wheel nuts with collars fastened to them, which we're going to check to make sure none of these collars have got any cracks or splits in them, and also that the spigots that the wheel mounts on, because this hole in the centre of the wheel is what it actually centralises on. There are wear limits on these shoulders, and we make sure that they're well within their specifications, but it should be a very close fit. While we're in the wheel arch area, before we move on, we're going to look at spray suppression. The spray suppression needs to cover the full breadth of the tyre. OK, we're looking at the inside and the presence and security of any spray suppression that may be required. And
do you have a gauge for testing that?
Do you know, it just so happens we do. It looks something like this. In the test holes, we may use a quick gauge so that we can take away the guessing and simply lay that against the mud flap like so. Provided it isn't any higher than this, it would be acceptable. Moving down the vehicle, any fairings that may be fitted to the back of the cab, we're checking these for security, OK? No sharp edges and not likely to become detached. Side guards for security. These are essential. We're checking for sharp edges. These have radiused edges on the leading edges of them here, but these have got caps on and they're close fitting to this wheel arch, so that's of this particular design. But it's very important that there's no sharp edges projecting forward. Moving down the vehicle, we're going to check for the presence and security of any marker lights and reflectors that may be required. Coming down here, we've got the fuel tank. Visually, we're checking it for security. Check any mountings that we can see for any signs of any rust around the nuts, which might indicate there's insecurity going on there. Make sure the straps are secure and they're not split at any point, any mounting points. The fuel cap, most important. We're going to check it's secure. No signs of any leakage of any fuel. We can take it off and have a look at the rubber seal to make sure that's intact, and the mating face on the tank there. And make sure that it goes back on and fastens securely. Another feature on this particular kind of vehicle, because it's got a demountable body, it has a twist lock.
Right.
And we're looking at the security and presence of the locking device. They're looking at the locking mechanism here to make sure it does its job properly. If the vehicle wasn't mounted with the body, we'd be looking at the faces and the companion flanges and such likes of this. But because we've got a body on, we're interested to make sure that it is secure, the locking device works, and on this particular vehicle, we've got a little secondary locking device there. OK? We're checking these as well. The points where the vehicle, the body would sit on the frame there, we're checking that there's no signs of movement there, no rusty marks and whatnot. With this having new paint on there, that gives us a good visual guide that everything's nice and secure. Yeah. Here's an air tank. It's important that they're secure, obviously. We're checking the tank straps for signs of corrosion, security, signs of movement, air pipes, making sure that there's no risk of failure or that they haven't worn through, or we're also listening for any air leaks that might be present. More marker lights and reflectors that might be required. Another wheel.
Same procedure?
Exactly the same procedure, yeah. But bear in mind, some of these fitments may have two tyres on each side of the axle, as there is in this case. So there's a limit to what we can see from here, but we'll get a better view of the inner wheel and tyre when we get it over the inspection pit. So wheel nut arrangement's exactly the same check as we did before. On this one, though, this is the drive axle, so we need to pay attention to this companion flange here on the end of the half shaft. We're looking for any signs of oil weepage and security of the fastening bolts. Same rules apply to the spray suppression and wheel arch arrangements. Side repeater indicator for security. Another wheel.
What about this one? Because this has got a bit of trim on it, hasn't it? Would you take that off?
Ideally, it should be taken off at the time of the test, but if a vehicle is presented for test with wheel trims on, such as this, or even a full wheel trim, we wouldn't tamper with that. Right, on the way down, don't forget there's another one of these twist locks for the body. OK, we've just checked that as we did before. Yeah. On this vehicle, we've got a tail lift, but that's not a testable item, but we just check it for security, any protrusions, and make sure it doesn't stick out beyond the bodywork, mainly to make sure that the thing is secure on the vehicle. Great. OK. Coming down the back then, We would look at marker lights if there were any fitted, and on this particular vehicle, because it's got a demountable body, it hasn't got any.
Right.
But bear in mind, some vehicles fitted with bodyweight will have marker lights at the top. OK, well, we'll get our assistant to work the lights for us. Harry, just put the lights on, please. Side lights first. And we look down the side of the vehicle here to make sure that the marker lights are present and working OK. Just try your indicators, please. From here, I can see the side repeater indicator we checked for security before. Other side. OK, brake lights, please. OK. Hazard lights. Rear fog lights, please. The important thing to check here also is that the operation of any one lamp doesn't affect the operation of another one. OK, so there's no cross-action between them. OK, driver, thanks very much. It's important to remember that vehicles will need reflectors fitted to them like this. However, it's important to note also that on trailers they'll be of a triangular formation. Leave your side lights on. Just want to check the operation of the number plate light here.
Yeah, that's working.
Is it? Good? Yeah, nice and bright. Number plates aren't part of the test, but we've simply checked that they're secure and they're clear. OK. Rear underrun bar, make sure it's secure. Rear reflective markers on heavy goods vehicles. They need to be in place, they need to be of the right type and securely fixed to the vehicle. OK? Any doors, latches and such likes, make sure they're secure and operational. General appearance and security, nothing hanging off or sticking out, no protrusions, good. So what we do now is we carry on down this side, just as we did on the other side.
So pretty much exactly the same, I would imagine.
It is, yeah. We're watching out for any differences that might be, I mean, such as we've already looked at the tail lift, but there's the control box for the tail lift, and all we're going to do with that is just to make sure it's secure and not likely to fall off the vehicle. Twist locks we've already done, side marker lights, spray suppression, wheels and tyres. Here again, we've got another dual fitment. Another thing to remember with dual fitment tyres is that the tyres will have a dual load rating here on the sidewall of the tyre, and make sure that they're the same on both sides of the axle, just as we did with the fronts.
Right.
So the wheel nuts and fixings and flanges and things like that, the inspection routine is exactly the same. So moving down the vehicle again, we've got the repeat operation of the side guards, the side marker lights. Here you can see we've got a bit of additional equipment, which is to do with the tail lift on this vehicle. But all we're looking for here is to make sure that any racks and attachments that they've got for holding the thing on hold the necessary parts secure to the vehicle and don't represent a risk. OK, moving down the vehicle again, another twist lock, and here we come to something else that's slightly different. We've got air tanks here mounted onto the battery cradle. So what we do is we give them a visual inspection, give them a little push if we can get our hands to it, make sure that the air tank is secure. And we've got a combination air valve here, so we're listening out for any signs of any air leaks. Touch the valve, make sure it's secure to the vehicle. Bringing us forward to the battery mounting cradle. We have a cover over this one. We're checking the security of the cover. It's not likely to come off the vehicle, and it's safe and secure.
Great. And then what's this?
That's the exhaust, part of the exhaust. Remember, they may be very hot, so we give them a visual inspection, and we'll probably get a better look at the mountings and such like when we get the vehicle over the inspection pit. OK. So we give it a looking at from both sides. Now,
we are, of course, looking at just one type of vehicle. Many different vehicles that drivers and operators are going to be checking routinely. Anything that you want to flag up that they...
Well, I mean, we're very lucky with this one because it's simply a slab-sided demountable body, but you're quite right in what you say. Commercial vehicles come in such a mind-blowing variety of designs and builds, some of them very special builds, some have cranes on them and so on and so forth. It's important that anybody that's carrying out an inspection on this kind of vehicle is acquainted and fully familiarised with the types of controls and special requirements for those kinds of vehicles. For instance, if a vehicle has a crane mounted on it, there may be extendable steady legs that will come out to steady the vehicle when the crane's in use. And there may be specific locking devices and such likes for those particular requirements. So it is important that these people do know what it is they're looking at, and the vehicle owner or operator will be fully acquainted with the requirements, and presumably they will have all the necessary vehicle-specific information, manuals and such likes. So any maintenance engineers can refer to that.
OK. Let's move on then, shall we, to the outside of the cab.
Here we got another fairing on the back of the cab for aerodynamics. We're checking that for security again. Any fairing panels, wheel arch, tyre, wheel fixings and so on we've done. Come to the passenger side door, check the operation, make sure it opens and closes OK.
Really good.
Yeah. Side repeater indicator. Just put your left-hand indicator on, driver, please. There we go. Operation, security, no sharp edges. Thanks, driver. Passenger step, security. The seat on this side of the vehicle.
That bit of a wiggle?
Yeah. And this, you'll notice that this one's fitted with a seat belt. We'll check the operation and the condition of this when we get up and do the cab details. So we'll look at those in more detail a little bit later on. Also, we're looking at mirror fittings that may be fastened to the near side of the vehicle. We're checking them for security and presence. OK? And then we'll move round to the front of the vehicle.
OK.
Right, so here we are at the front of the vehicle, starting on the near side corner. We'll use the old tried and tested method of top, middle, bottom. Starting at the top then, you'll see we've got a marker light right on the top corner of the cab. We'll ask the driver to put the side lights on, please. And we make sure that illuminates, OK? Coming down the screen, we've got a bit of a wind deflector visor there. We'll just give that a visual check for security and presence. This is a wide-angle front mirror, OK? That'll need to be in good condition and secure. Moving down this corner of the bodywork, we're looking for any damage, insecurity. Same applies here. The lighting checks that we do here are exactly the same lighting checks that we've done on all the others. We've got the driver's got the side lights on here. Just put your headlights on, please, driver. Main beam. And indicators. OK, try your hazards, please. Ignition on and ignition off. OK, and we do exactly the same check on the light unit on the other side. OK, thanks, driver. Moving down here, we're looking for insecurity of panel work, any damage. Back up to the top, screen visor again. Looking at the windscreen for any damage that might impede the operation of the wipers themselves or obscure the driver's view of the road. OK? Condition of the wiper blades. We're lucky we can reach these. Some of these, you might need a step ladder to get to them, but we'll check the operation of the wipers and washers from inside the cab anyway. Bodywork panel at the front here. No signs of insecurity or damage that's likely to cause any problems here. Number plate securely attached. Moving across the screen again, we've got another marker light at the top. Moving down to the middle, we've done the mirrors as we went round there at the first part of the check. Any bodywork, the light units, exactly the same checks. Tapping and checking the hazard lights with ignition on and ignition off and so on. OK, right, down to the bottom. That concludes that part of the check. Now, this vehicle has an opening front on it, which will allow us to look at some of the components hidden behind this access panel. So we'll ask the driver to release that front panel for me, please.
Ooh.
There we go. There's a little doings in here. And that goes up. Nice convenient umbrella to keep us out the weather. But as you can see, it's exposed a whole variety of things that may be part of the check. This device here is actually the foot brake control valve. So we're using our hearing to listen for any leaks. Press the foot brake, please. No leaks from the control valve, and off. It's important we look at the run of these plastic control pipes to make sure they're not damaged or chafed. Also, down here, we'll have a steering column. And in some cases, that will be exposed, but this one here is all covered in with a plastic trunking. But where the steering linkages are exposed, we'd examine them for any wear and insecurity and to make sure they're not fouling on any components. We would ask the driver to rock the steering from side to side. Cab suspension mountings. This one's riding on little air units. We're looking at the location bolts. Be aware that on older vehicles, corrosion may be an issue. Looking for any signs of insecurity, and we'll work our way up and down as we go across for anything that's cause for concern. Any accessories and attachments that may be stored in here. We've got wiper linkage control, all secure. Any covers, cables, attachments. As you can see, lots and lots of cable ties and things here. But of course, with age, these may start to fail, and inspectors would need to pick up on these and report them accordingly and take the appropriate action.
What about articulated vehicles, though? Are there additional checks you'd want to carry out on those? Well,
that's a very good point, because, like you say, we would have a towing tractor unit and a semi-trailer unit, and between the two, there'll be a variety of airline connections and electrical connections, and it's important that we check that they're all intact and working properly. We have a little tool that we use to check the operation of the self-sealing valve on the service line. Just make sure the green band's visible on the indicator. Also, the trailer connection point, the fifth wheel as we call it, it's vital that that operates correctly and any safety devices attached to that are in place and are working properly. With the airlines disconnected, we'll have a driver in the vehicle and get him to try and drive the vehicle forwards and backwards. OK, driver, if you can just start it up, please, and try pushing back. This will show up anywhere in the fifth wheel coupling, and it also checks the emergency brake on the trailer. OK. And forward, please. That's fine, thank you. We also check landing legs for security and make sure they're not likely to fall down or fall from the vehicle. When we're looking at bodywork and running gear and things like that, it's exactly the same process. But bear in mind with a trailer, there may be an additional parking device that might take the form of a ratchet cable or even a push-pull button device that will be mounted on a plate on the trailer somewhere.
Great. Shall we get inside?
Yeah, come on. Right, so here we are in the cab. That's a mighty climb, wasn't it? As I'm getting in, check the security of the seats.
Righto.
OK. I remember that we introduced the seat belts when we looked through the cab door before. I'm going to check its security of its mounting, condition of the webbing, and that it connects and releases under tension. I also took the opportunity on the way in to check the brake pedal anti-slip, its security, and make sure there's nothing on the cab floor that's likely to impede the pedal movement. Right, let's get in and close the door.
So as you do that, you've checked these things on your way up.
Yes.
Now you're in.
Now that we're in.
Do we do a top, middle, bottomed?
We can do, yeah, but before we move on to that, I also took the opportunity to look at any exposed steering parts that might be on show down in the foot pedal area, but there weren't any on this particular vehicle. So what we'll do is we'll check the steering column for security and come round here, but you're quite right. Let's start with top, middle, bottom, then over that side. Let's look at our mirrors. They've got to provide me with the view they're designed to give. Now, this one here is giving me a really nice view to the rear, the wide-angle mirror at the bottom, and also we've got this close proximity mirror mounted on the top of the door. It's important that no stickers or decals have been fitted on the windows. Truck drivers are in for fitting, personalising the cabs and whatnot, but it mustn't impede any of the view to the mirrors. Moving around the screen, we notice we've got this forward wide-angle mirror here, OK, mounted to the front of the vehicle. And that brings us nicely across the screen, and we're inspecting for any sort of damage on here. Let's just have a quick look at the swept area of the screen by using, we can operate the wipers and washers, because you remember we looked at the condition of the wipers
so we
themselves.
know they're nice and secure already.
Yes, we did. So let's have a look, see if we can get sufficient liquid to the screen and the wipers clear it away.
Looks pretty good.
OK, but that gives us an indication of the swept area that formed by the arc of the wipers. And it's important that we recognise any damage that might be in the swept area. We're allowed to have slightly more damage over on the near side than we are on the driver's view, but any damage should be subject of a report. It's also important that drivers don't accumulate stuff on top of the dashboard, as they're quite prone to do, the documents and one thing and another. Not just because it might impair his view towards the front, but it might also block the air vents down here, which you may need to use to keep the screen clear. Moving across the dashboard to this side, hazard warning switch. We check the operation of the hazard warning switch and any warning lights that light up on the dashboard. So, right, we'll try that with the ignition off, and they're still working, which is great. Right, steering. Steering wheel, it's important that the surface of the steering wheel is in good condition, so there's nothing, no projections, no cuts or damage that's likely to interfere with my control of the vehicle. We make sure it's secure. Now, on this particular vehicle, it's adjustable for angle and reach, but whenever the driver has set it to wherever he wants it to be, it should be secure and not moving about, because you can imagine how scary that'd be if the steering wheel moved. OK. We've already mentioned the brake pedal control. I'm going to switch the ignition on, and I'm making sure now that any vehicles equipped with anti-lock braking systems will have a warning light on the dashboard to tell us if the system is operational. Some will stay on until the vehicle's driven, some will come on for a few seconds and then go off. But there again, that's vehicle-specific information which any person examining the vehicle should acquaint themselves with. Before we go on to look at air pressure build-up time and warning devices, I'm going to open the cab door for a second here now, and I'm going to apply the brake fully. I'm going to listen for any air leaks, and I can't hear any. OK. And also, while I had the foot brake fully depressed, I was listening for any audible leaks outside. I'm also keeping an eye on the air tank gauges to see if there's any drop. OK, because although I might not be able to hear the air leak, if it's way back on the vehicle or there's a lot of surrounding noise, I'll use the gauge to tell me that there may be a severe leak on the system. We can check out the park brake lever. It's important there that actually locks in the on position, as this one does. OK. We make sure that it's a positive lock and it's not loose on its mountings. Right. So, brake system itself. We need to check that the warning systems to tell us that the air pressure is dropping down is actually functioning. So what I'll do is I'll have the ignition switched on, and I'll work the brake on and off until the warning system alerts me. Now, that might be audible or it might be just a visual one. OK. I'm going to stroke the brake pedal fully, on and off repeatedly, until I get an alert on the dashboard.
And how long does that normally take?
Well, it'll depend on how many tanks there are on the vehicle. We just got the indication now, so that was after about a dozen or so applications of the brake. So now we've got air pressure low. The gauges are indicating they're down to about half of their value. Now, I must be able to apply the brake twice fully after the low air system warning light has come on, or the low air pressure warning light has come on. So I'll go 1, 2, yeah. Still got 2 full applications of the brake. I'm going to continue to deplete the air system now until it's all gone, and then we'll see how long it takes for the engine to build up and recharge the air system. And that'll need to be in accordance with the limits laid down in the Bose manual. There we go, that's just about done the job. There's nothing left in there now. We've got our visual warning sign on here. It's important to note that because we haven't got a warning buzzer going off at the same time, that any gauges to indicate the pressure levels in the tanks must light up at night. So I'll put the side lights on and have a look, and they do, and they light up a nice pretty pink, which is great. OK, so I'm going to start the engine up now, and I'm going to hold it at a point just below governed engine speed, and as I say, the engine should, the system should recharge to fully operational pressure within the limits laid down in the Bose Testers manual.
While you're waiting for that to happen, Jake, can I just ask you what you would do if it was a hydraulic braking system? OK, if it was a hydraulic braking system, what I would do there was I would deplete any vacuum in the brake servo system if it had one, and I would hold the pedal up at full pressure. I would press it, you know, quite hard, and I'd be looking for any sponginess or pedal creep. Okay.
With the pedal held on tight, I would start the engine up, and once the servo came online, you'd notice the pedal would go down further to show that any vacuum assistance or servo assistance was operational. While I'm running the engine at this speed, I notice I can operate the steering with fingertips only, which is telling me that the power assisted steering system on this is very effective, and I'm also on the lookout for any excessive free play in the steering wheel rim, which there isn't on this one. We've still got our low air pressure sign on. While we're waiting for this to happen, I'm going to try my indicators, check that the warning lights are working. I'll continue to go, build the air up. Rear fog warning light, I need to have a warning light on the dashboard to tell me when that's on, and I've just checked the operation of that, which is good. The horn, which is good.
You've got another one in this.
Oh, let's check this. You've never heard anything like this. Have a go at this. That's something else.
It's pretty impressive.
Fantastic. Big boys and their toys, yeah. Also, we need to think about, we've got a tachograph in here. This is a digital tachograph on this one. And what we're looking at, we'll be checking that the seal is intact and hasn't been tampered with.
Yeah.
There are other types of tachographs fitted into vehicles which have seals in various places, and some of them may have a visual clock on that you need to check is set right as well. This vehicle's fitted with a digital tachograph, so we'll be checking the K-factor plaque, the seal on the front of the tachograph, and we'll also be checking that it can produce a printout to verify the speed limit is working. Other vehicles may be fitted with analogue tachographs, and we'll also be checking the K-factor plaque, the calibration plaque, and any seals fitted to the instrument. And we use a piece of special kit for checking that the speed limiter works. And it needs to have a plaque displayed in a conspicuous position. And this one is in the form of a sticker mounted in the bottom corner of the windscreen here, out of the driver's view. Right, we've built our air up fully. Well, also obviously very important that we can switch the engine off. Hey presto, it works.
Well, that all seems pretty comprehensive, Jake. Anything else we need to check at all in here?
No, that just about wraps it up. But before we take the vehicle into the workshop, while it's nicely warm and primed and everything else, I think what we'll do is we'll carry out an emissions check. But I'll need your help for that, if you don't mind. If you want to pop into the driving seat so that you can work the controls here while I go and work the machine.
Not at all. I'd be very glad to.
Right. Right, Sophie, so what we're going to do now is an emissions test on the vehicle.
Righto.
Normally, if you turned up for an annual test, this would be done very early on in the test process because they'd want to get the vehicle with the engine warm for the best possible chances of passing, get the conditions right. And to check the emissions, we're going to use this smoke meter. We've already checked the oil and water, the vital fluids and things, and for this demonstration, we've already warmed the engine up as well. OK.
Yeah.
Right, however, If you are an independent operator and you don't have access to this kind of equipment, what you would do, you would carry out a visual smoke test. But however, if you had any reasons to doubt that the vehicle was operating properly, you could take it along to any authorised testing station or VOSA facility where you could have a metered smoke test carried out. Now, first of all, what I'd like you to do, now that we've got it already warmed up, I'd like you to purge the exhaust system for me, please. OK, that's fine. Thank you. Right, I'm just going to insert the probe now, and then I'll ask you to give me a full acceleration. OK, so I've got to follow the prompts printed out on the screen here for me. And what it's asking for now is if you can give me a full rev acceleration, please. And when I lift my arm, let the gas off, OK? OK, that's good. In this instance, it's passed on the first rev.
Great news.
But it may be necessary, based on what the machine's telling us, we may have to do a maximum of 6 accelerations in order to pass. OK? You can switch it off for me now, please. There we are. Nice clean printout, and it says right at the bottom, passed. But bear in mind that even though it may have passed the measured emissions test, that if the vehicle's emitting smoke of any colour from the exhaust that might obscure vision, then it would still fail. But here's your ticket. It says passed on the bottom, all nice and clean. Yep. No club card points, I'm afraid, though, but if you can keep that with the vehicle records for reference anyway.
Lovely, will do.
OK, right. Well, that concludes all the outside parts of the vehicle examination. Let's take it inside and finish the rest. OK. So here we are, down the pit, and you can see we've got the vehicle already raised on the jack to save a little bit of time. But it's worth noting that we always jack the vehicle up with the engine running for safety reasons. And that's so that we don't inadvertently start the vehicle with it in gear, because there have been some terrible accidents. So for safety reasons, we always have the engine running and then we jack it up. But we also need the engine running because we want the driver to perform some functions for us. We're going to ask him to turn the steering from lock to lock so that we can observe all the steering parts to make sure they don't foul on anything or cause any obstruction. It will also give us a chance to rotate the wheels and tyres so that we can have a look at the full spread circumference. OK? So if we can ask our driver to turn it to a full left lock, please.
Sure. Driver, full left lock, please.
And we're looking at all the steering components we can see as they travel from the centre point to the full lock. And we get a good view of the tyre facing towards us, and we'll turn it around slowly so that we can have a good look at the full tread area. At the same time, we'll have a look at the inner wall, because we couldn't see that before when we did the topside check. That's good.
You follow that same procedure on all of the wheels?
Yes. But what we'll ask the driver to do now, we'll ask him to turn the steering over to the other lock for us. And I'll watch the steering rods to make sure they don't foul anything, and we'll have a look at that tyre check.
Driver, full right lock now, please.
OK, we'll ask the driver to straighten it up for us, please.
Sorry?
We ask the driver to straighten it up for us, please. They're good, these, aren't they?
Driver, can you straighten up the wheels now, please?
I'm going to lower the vehicle so that so that these shaker plates just take a slight touch of weight off the vehicle, and I'm going to use the shaker plates to display any play that there might be in any kingpins, pivot bearings, support bearings, and the likes. Okay. Okay. So the vehicle weight has just been taken on these shaker plates now, and I'll use these light-mounted controls to activate the shaker plates and see if we can see any play. You can see how much effort the shaker plates are putting on the system by how much the tyre's deflecting. But these are the points where we're going to look for play in the suspension and steering components. And as you can see, there's no movement there, which indicates everything's in good health. That's all right. And the same on this side here. All seems in good order. Now then, we just ask our driver to apply the foot brake, please.
Driver, could you apply the foot brake now, please?
Now. with the foot brake applied, I'm going to make the plates move backwards and forwards, and that will highlight anywhere that there might be present in things like anchor pins on the springs, any movement in the axle holding down bolt. And you can see the way the vehicle's rocking there, how much effort the plates are acting onto the system. The movement we've got there is the give in the rubber push, so everything seems to be fine. You can see the way the spring is deflecting. Any free play there would be highlighted for sure. We'll be able to see visibly the movement. Okay. Right, so if you ask the driver to let the brake go now, please.
And let the brake go, please.
Right. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to let the weight right down on the vehicle, and we'll ask the driver to shake the steering, and we'll have a look at the steering joints for any play while it's resting fully on the ground. Okay. So if we just ask our driver to shake the steering, please.
If you could shake the steering for us, please.
There we go. And that's the front steering joint there. We follow this control rod back here. So the steering joint on this steering lever. And all the time we're looking for any free play. Same on this track rod end here. Follow the track rod along, looking for any bends or deformation. And to this one here. Making sure that any nuts, securing nuts, are tight and secure. And any locking devices that might be fitted are present. Right, now we've got a bit of peace and quiet.
Yeah.
We had the engine running for a few moments there, so that will have given a chance for any oil leaks or fuel leaks to show themselves. So we have a quick look around to make sure that there's nothing running from the engine, no serious oil or fuel leaks. And also while the engine was running, it gave us a chance to check the exhaust system for excessive noise.
And when we were using the shake plates there, it's important to sort of flag up that not everyone would have access to those, would they?
No, you're absolutely right. So what garages would probably have to do then is just to revert to the old tried and trusted method of jacking the vehicle up clear of the ground, insert a heavy stout bar into the wheel, and shake the wheel in and out, looking for any play in the kingpin, and also then put the bar underneath to raise the wheel and kingpin assembly to see if there was any excessive lift in there.
So now we're down here with the engine off. A few other things we need to look at.
That's right. What we're going to ask the driver to do now is to apply the foot brake fully, because while the engine is running, it will have charged the air system. We're going to walk around each of the wheels in turn, listening for any air leaks while the foot brake is applied.
Right, shall I issue that command?
Oh, yes, please.
Could you apply the foot brake, please, driver?
Gracious me, that. Well, can you hear any hissing? I can hear a lot of woodpeckers going on, but their valves fluctuating as they get control of the pressure. No air leaks here at this wheel. We're going to work around this way. So this brake actuator here, all quiet, no signs of any air leaks. And this one here. And exactly the same check up that other side of the vehicle. So while we're down at the back end here, we'll ask the driver to release the foot brake. OK,
so release the foot brake, please.
Now, by releasing the park brake lever in the cab, he's admitted air into the spring brake system to retract the springs. So, believe it or not, there's quite a lot of air pressure in the parking brake system now, releasing the spring brakes. Once again, we have a little walk, listening for any obvious air leaks. And I can't hear any. Everything's fine. Bear in mind, of course, that when we spoke about these wheels and tyres when we were out on the hard standing this morning, we may have to move the vehicle forward 3 or 4 feet, so that part of the tyre here would be exposed in that position so that we could check all the tread area. OK, well, of course, we had the advantage of having the front jacked up before we could see the full circumference of the tyre. So bearing that in mind, we approach the vehicle as a box section exercise from the front, working our way to the back. So we recommend splitting the vehicle into boxes. The process starts off at the offside front wheel. A thorough inspection is made of everything within the box. Once the inspector is satisfied that he's covered all the items within, he then moves across to the next box towards the near side, repeating the process. He then continues in the same way, eventually moving up on the other side of the axle. The area around the front axle has been divided into 6 box sections. Each has many items to check within it. As the inspector moves down the vehicle, he can decide, depending on its length and type, the size and number of boxes required. Along this path, you would check things like the tacho seal, the prop shaft flange companion bolts, airbags for deterioration and damage,
anti-roll bar links and bushes, axle tie bars, brake components and linkages.
When he gets to the next axle, once again, the area is divided into 6 boxes. In fact, all the axles should be treated as such, including those on trailers. On completing the thorough inspection of the final axle, the inspector once again decides on the size these imaginary boxes to divide the rest of the vehicle into. This simple routine ensures that no items are missed on the way. It's also worth noting that whilst much of the inspection is visual, sometimes you have to pull, prod and lever.
But the main thing is to check all items for condition and security.
So is that it then?
Yep, that's all we need to do down here. What we'll do now is we'll get out the pit and we'll take the vehicle forward into the headlamp test area.
Great.
The first thing to do in the headlamp alignment check is to bring the vehicle forward to the datum line for the headlamp tester. OK, so here we are. We're going to check the headlamp alignment now. And we're going to use this piece of kit here, which is mounted on level rails, and we can run across in front of the vehicle. Now, it's quite a complicated looking piece of equipment, but it is very easy to use.
OK.
What we need to do first of all is to line it up with the vehicle.
Right.
What we do is we'll pick on 2 horizontal points on the front, and we can use the mirror to align it. So I'm going to choose these 2 points here.
Right.
OK. Now I'm going to use the gap between these 2 green lines on the mirror.
Sorry.
You will see the 2 points that I've chosen.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
So now we know that this machine is perfectly aligned to the front of the vehicle. Now, we want to check this headlight first. It's also important to remember that when using headlamp alignment equipment, that we measure the height of the centre of the headlamp from the ground to see if it's above or below 850 millimetres, so that we're working to the right parameters. I'm now going to select Headlamp Dip Beam, indicated by this symbol here. And then we look at the image projected on the screen there. And looking at that image, it tells me that they're perfectly aligned.
Oh, yeah.
So you see where the image has got a slight kick up to the left? The very top line there is telling us that's the maximum zone for heavy goods vehicles.
What would you do if you didn't have access to one of these?
Right, well, I can appreciate a lot of operators and maintenance facilities may not have access to one of these machines. But those that actually produce a leaflet telling operators and maintenance people how to carry out this test by using a simple board and a piece of chalk, or by lining the vehicle up against a wall on a flat surface. One of the main reasons that vehicles fail annual test for headlamp alignment is because they're not set in a symmetrical fashion. One of them is either set high and the other one low, or vice versa. So by shining the headlights on a vertical surface or against a flat wall before you bring it for test would highlight that fault long before we found it.
OK, so that's headlamp aim.
Yes.
What's next?
Brake test.
OK.
Into the brake test cabin.
That looks pretty complicated. Does it do more than just test the brake efficiency?
The main things it's looking for are efficiency, brake bind, brake imbalance, ovality, time lag, and little or no effort on any one of the wheels.
OK.
Any of which of those things would result in a failure at annual test.
So we basically just continue through these screens?
through this braking plan, yeah, that's right. OK, let's have axle 1 on, please, driver. OK, we can see that the vehicle's now in the rollers and it's measuring the weight imposed upon the rollers, and it'll work out the brake efficiency against that imposed weight. So we'll run the rollers to centralise the vehicle. OK, driver, slowly on the brake. He's going to hold here, he's checking for ovality, but in that yellow zone. Hold it. Slowly all the way. And that's our maximum reading on that side. And off. There we go. Now it's stored the results for that brake test. And now it's prompting us to go on to the next axle, and that's exactly the same process all the way through. And then it'll ask us, do we want to print out? And we give it a printout produced, telling us what the overall brake test result was for each individual wheel, and whether the overall result results in a pass or a fail.
And should the vehicle be loaded when this test is going on?
Ideally, it should be, yeah. You should have some load on the vehicle. And also, you need to look out for things like, don't bring a vehicle for test that's just been relined or it's just been steam cleaned that morning, because for obvious reasons you won't get the performances that you're looking for, because new brake linings will need time to bed in, and obviously if a vehicle's been steam cleaned or been subject to an underside wash, all that dirt and water will have to burn away first. So there's sort of things to look out for, but ideally, yes, they should be brought to the test station loaded.
Well, Well, that was pretty comprehensive, Jake, but what would you do if you didn't have one of those machines?
In basic terms, you could put a load on your vehicle and you could drive it up a level piece of road such as this and apply the brakes to make sure that the vehicle pulls up square, or you could use a decelerometer if you wanted to measure the actual brake efficiency. Failing that, you could always take it along to a Vosa heavy goods test site, where they'd be more than happy to do a roller brake test for you.
And they do a multi-check, don't they?
That's right, yeah. You'll get a headlamp alignment check, you'll get emissions check, and also a full roller brake test.
And you mentioned a little while ago that there is somewhere where you can get chapter and verse on this. There's a book, is there?
Yeah, I did, didn't I? And it just so happens I have one here, and it's called The Guide to Maintaining Roadworthiness. That's ram-jam chocker with all sorts of useful information to both maintenance and operations people.
Brilliant. So lots of useful information in there,
Yes.
and more information as well on the DVD.
There is indeed, and that'll tell you where you can get a copy of the Heavy Goods Vehicle Testing Manual, which is where we've got all that information from today. And as you say, it's on the menu of the DVD.
How important is it that people who are checking vehicles are trained?
I'd say it's vital. It's got to be right. Vosa happens to offer training courses on this precise subject of vehicle inspections.
And what would you say to operators and drivers about how important that is and why it's important? Because often training is costly, certainly in regard to time.
Well, that's true, maybe, but you've got to look at the big picture, because proper training is the only thing that will protect drivers and operators from the consequences of an unreliable business. And this consequently has a knock-on effect on reliability, road safety and operating within the law.
Of course, because at the end of the day, I suppose, they're guarding against the possibility of prohibitions and fixed penalties.
Absolutely right. But what we're looking for here is safe, efficient vehicles being used on the roads, but it means it's safe for everybody.
Jake, thanks so much for going through all that with us. Thank you.
Thank you.